Welcome to the Holistic High Achiever Podcast. I'm your host, Kaitlin Rohowetz. This podcast is all about thriving in the modern world without sacrificing your health. It's for all of my fellow high achievers, business owners, mompreneurs, single parents, hustlers, and the people who do so much for everyone else, but sometimes at a detriment to their own health. The people who want to do it all, but need to find a better way to without burning themselves out or continuing to put their health on the back burner. Yes, we'll talk about health, nutrition, movement, and easy solutions to living healthier, but we'll also cover topics like goal setting, building habits, and overcoming challenges and limiting beliefs, which can be applied to any area, including health, so that you can thrive holistically. Hello, high achievers! On today's episode, we're going to talk about sleep. Arguably one of the most important subjects. Sleep is just such a foundational aspect of our health. It literally impacts everything else, from mood and mental health to energy and weight loss. And if you listened to my first episode where I shared my story and talked a little bit about being in survival mode, if you don't know what survival mode is, first, you might have actually heard the term fight or flight. And fight or flight is a stress response when you're going through a trauma or when you're just so burnt out that your body's nervous system is in a sympathetic response that shuts down everything, the higher functioning part of your brain, and everything that isn't essential basically is not functioning. And the reason that's important is because sleep is one of the most well-known things to have a direct impact on mental health and correlates to being in fight or flight. When you're not sleeping well, you are much more likely to be in fight or flight versus when you finally are sleeping better, it's a lot easier to get your body out of that survival mode state. And that was 100% true for me and so many other people I've talked to and other professionals that I've talked to that have validated why I felt that way. Things really did not start changing and progressing more forward for me until I started sleeping better. And I know I shared that I'm a mom and everybody goes through sleep deprivation when you first become a parent. It's kind of just like the inevitable rite of passage, I guess. But even long after my kid was sleeping through the night, I was still struggling with sleep. And it caused me to continue feel like I was fighting this uphill battle. And it wasn't until I got my own sleep in check that things started to really propel and create some momentum and some progress for me. So the reason I share this is because whatever your goals are, if your goal is to lose weight, if your goal is to thrive in business and, be more alert and make better decisions and have better clear thinking, it is going to be 10 times harder to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish if you are not sleeping well. So if you're currently sleep deprived and you're trying to work out a few times a week and really eat perfectly, yeah, those things are good, but I can almost promise you sleep might be the more important one to focus on if you're willing to. So, and here's the thing with health, when you're not sleeping well, you don't think clear. So whether your goal is business, it's going to be harder to function, think clearly, be productive. But even if your goal is health and you're not thinking clearly, you can't even start to think about what am I going to eat for dinner tonight? How am I going to meal prep? What's healthy? How much protein is in this, right? Your brain doesn't have the space to process that information because it's literally attempting to do as little as possible. And then the other thing is when you're tired and you're running on fumes and you're kind of running on reserves, you are actually more likely to have cravings for sugary things, for just really empty calorie types of foods. And we'll get into this more in detail in a future episode. But the reason that is because those types of, sugar specifically, is absorbed really quickly by the body to give you that burst of more immediate energy. It's also, because it's absorbed so quickly, you also crash more quickly from it. But when you're tired, you're often oh, I need a latte, or I need a cookie, or I need a 3 p.m. muffin, whatever it is. And you have have that and you feel good for a while, but then you crash again because what you really need is sleep. So when you're not getting the sleep, your body is in this constant craving cycle to eat foods that are going to give you the energy that you need to get through the day. But if you keep doing that, that's not going to be good for your waistline. It's not going to be good for your overall health long term. What you really need is to get better sleep. So what do we do about that? My number one sleep solution that I give to clients that I work with, that I'm going to share with you for free today, is the power down hour. I didn't invent this, but it's something that I've personally applied and have saw such major results from, both before and after having a kid. I just had to get back into the routine of it after having a kid. And I've shared it with so many clients who have seen just incredible results from it. And let me start by saying, if you have heard of the power down hour before and you're like, yeah, no thanks, stay with me, because it doesn't have to be an hour. That's just the generic term I give it. But basically the point of it is to calm your body, because if you're like me and you have anxiety before bed or anything, you want to calm your body so that you can wind down and prepare your body for a restful state. It's really, really hard to move straight from like very stimulating activities like working on the computer or going over your to-do list or your calendar, watching the news, or even just watching a really good show, but then just jumping right into bed and being like, okay, I'm going to fall asleep now. Because your brain is still in an active state. So the goal of the power down hour is to ease your body into a more relaxed state so that when your head hits the pillow, you can actually fall asleep quickly and more easily. You know, the challenge of the power down hour is that we all want to like pack in as much as we can for the day, and we have this FOMO that we're like, oh, I'm going to miss out. I'm not going to get these things done if I don't. And I hear this a lot, but at the end of the day, forming some sort of routine, like picking a bedtime and sticking to it, is so good. You know, I could create an entire podcast episode just on how our bodies function on routines, and I probably will. But picking a bedtime, sticking to it, because our bodies have this natural circadian rhythm. And when you can be a little bit more regimented about when you go to sleep and when you wake up, your body will naturally start to feel tired when it's time to go to sleep and feel awake when it's time to wake up. I actually most days wake up before my alarm even goes off, and don't feel tired because I have then now trained my body to be tired when it's time to be tired. And I actually have an alarm that goes off in my phone when it's time to do my power down hour. And most nights I have actually started doing it before the alarm goes off. It's just like this internal clock that's like, okay, it's time now. So the challenge, like I said, is that you either don't feel tired or you feel like you have a lot of stuff to do, but try it, because I can almost guarantee this works for every client I've ever shared it with, every friend I've shared it with, and it's done wonders for me. So what is it? Well, first of all, the things to avoid during your power down hour, some of the things I've already mentioned, but TV, but especially negativity, like, you know, the news, any show that gets you like really riled or has like super graphic, uncomfortable scenes, probably not good. Screens in general, like phones and computers, there's a lot of research about how the light affects us, but it's also like engaging our brain in different ways. Vigorous exercise. So you don't want to go do like a HIIT workout or something, go running, 30 minutes before it's time to go to bed. Those are good things for you, just typically not right before bed. And then just anything else that you find overstimulating. Don't start a conversation with your spouse about a really heated topic right before bed, if you can. Book a time with them to discuss that later. The types of things to do is really anything that puts you or your body or your mind at ease. Think things like a bath or a hot shower, reading, journaling, stretching, or some sort of gentle yoga, a TENS unit, like a stim machine, meditation. I personally do my face care routine because I'm such a minimalist. I never used to do any of that, but that's like how my power down hour starts. Get my little regimen in, my cleanser, my toner, my eye cream, and then my moisturizer. Brushing and flossing, which we could all use reminders about flossing sometimes, I feel like. Playing relaxing music. some sort of gratitude routine, whether it's internally or out loud with a partner or a friend, that you share your wins for the day or what you feel grateful about for the day. A few other suggestions I also want to throw out is, like, if you are feeling anxiety before bed, anxiety is often in our head. It's up here. And when you can find a way to involve your body in some sort of like gentle stretching or moving, it's a great way to get out of your head and get into your body to help just really break that state. As I mentioned, try setting an alarm for when it's time to start powering down. I also like to suggest to people to keep a notepad next to your bed to like write things down. If your brain is just like going a million miles an hour right before bed and you're like, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do this, write them down. They will be there for you in the morning. But most importantly, it doesn't need to be an hour. And that's why I said stick with me when I first mentioned a power down hour, because a whole hour to wind down, if you're currently doing like 0, sounds like a lot of time. So if that feels overwhelming, ask yourself what you could do to just create a little bit more time, and start small. Like if you're currently doing 0, start with 5 minutes. 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be big. And then you can always build on that if you choose to. But whatever you do, whatever you choose, it should be the same each night. You can always change it or add to it, but you want to start building it so that it becomes a habit. So like I said, how I am, where I start kind of going through the motions before the alarm even goes off, that's habit. When you can do things automated without having to remind yourself to do them, and you're just going through the motions, that is a well-formed habit, and it's so much easier to hold space for other things now because you're not holding space for that. You're just doing it on autopilot. Okay, so I just threw a lot of information at you, and it's a good thing because that means you have a lot of choices, you have a lot of options. But regardless of your situation, the real question to ask yourself is, where can I build in a little bit more sleep? And keep in mind, my theme from my last episode on my story is it doesn't need to be a big change. It shouldn't be a big change. Starting smaller has a ton of value because it's more sustainable, it's less effort initially to implement, which generally translates into being more sustainable. So I hope you find that helpful. That is all I have for you today, friends. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Holistic High Achiever podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired and ready to take on the world one healthy step at a time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you're anything like me, you probably thought of someone else who would really resonate with this. So don't forget to share this with them, because who can't use a little extra motivation? Until next time, keep embracing your journey and kicking ass.